actually just going to go ahead and start and talk about when we were going through the curatorial kind of discussion or premise that making worlds the Venice 53rd biennial, right? I felt like there was a lot of generalizations going on, ideas of romanticism, a generalized and idealized approach to the practice of art as being individualized, partially because of globalization. And then he went into discussing how it's important that each individual interprets the work on a different level based on cultural, social, political experiences within their own. And then this kind of got drawn out into discussing the framework of the Venice Biennial as this kind of counterpart of experience and culture, just very subtly describing everything as being individual, but yet having a commonality. And I felt like that's a kind of a general, like very vague description, just like the title, Making Worlds. I mean, every work is going to have its own set of inferred information based on personal experience to begin with, right?
Yeah.
Where do you guys sit with that kind of how Birnbaum's like?
I don't know, I almost get the idea that a lot of this work wasn't picked because it was good. It feels like it was picked on the basis that it looks different from people from other countries. Like, should there be an artist in England that does work very similar to someone who works in India, they wouldn't pick things that are similar because they want to show the nationality identity as something different from everything else. And it just doesn't seem to be true to what is actually represented from that country.
Almost as if it were the ideal depiction of those regions.
Yeah.
Stereotypes.
Say Palermo, Blinky Palermo, the German painter, very minimal. Yeah, I would agree with that. But the one thing that I found a little disturbing in his introduction to the biennial was just the fact that what he says about artistic being valid as simply personal expression.
Yeah.
There's, I put all these artists together. They all express these ideas, all these ideas differently, and he doesn't go in any more detail than just it simply being valid for self-expression. That he's not talking about them validating their political issues or validating social economic issues or what have you. So
we're talking about modernism, really, right there.
Essentially, so here's a quote from Daniel Birnbaum in his as his director of exhibitions. Quote: "A new visual language emerges that allows for repetition and difference, producing infinite variation." Well, of course, there's going to be infinite variation within the read of the work, based on all of those things that we've just discussed as a global framework for the large-scale exhibition, which is biennial, right? So there's, I think, I have a lot of questions as far as like the intent. I'd be more curious to hear in depth his perceptions on the work. I think, there's just a lot of vague things. But once we get into the artists that we're discussing, I think we'll see a lot more.
But to me, vague makes sense when, what do they say? That they gear that for somebody to look at it for, what was it, 30 seconds or less?
5 seconds.
5 seconds or less? So
That's
there's vague, I mean.
Sure, that's a good point.
And I do believe that they fit in their, that they were selected differently, of course, because there's a different curator, but they also cross paths with the Making Worlds theme, more or less. And that, just reiterating what you said earlier, that the theme of the show is so broad that you can fit anything you want into it, and it also has infinite interpretations. But
yeah,
I guess that would summarize more of
Does it almost seem like the Venice Biennial was made for tourists rather than artists?
Well, yeah, I think that's an economic drive for that institution specifically. I mean, fuck, you have to be able to afford to host this event. Yeah.
And it seems like they're in the position, having being such a long tradition, that it almost seems like they're stuck in this position where they really can't step out and be a little bit more dangerous or confrontational, or politically charged, where it almost has to be this biennial that's palatable.
A survey.
Yeah.
A survey of exhibition rather
Yeah.
than,
But yeah, and I mean, it seems like the Venice Biennial is taking on the role of the art historian. It's giving this broad view in a semester's worth of time, 2 days time, whatever it is, how long you're there, of the world's art.
Yeah.
So, and I think, which is kind of a passive way to go about it.
I don't know, I just can't really understand how, when you have the ability to reach that many people, why you wouldn't want to do anything with it.
I just stare at the camera.
So Liggio was one of the most important Brazilian artists of the neo-concrete movement, and she was interested in making geometric forms that the audience could interact with, or the viewer could interact with. In her older work, on through her newer work, she's dead now, but even her very first pieces were never hanging on the wall just to look at. They were some type of interactive piece. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think, bringing the work from I guess the role of the function of the piece of work and the function of the institution and the function of the viewer had very specific, there were very specific roles within those functions, right? At the time when Lydia was making this work. And I think she totally helped break down some of those boundaries on questioning the viewer's role, such as viewer as kind of voyeur or as non-participant. Like once the work was completed, it operates as a masterpiece with or without the viewer because of in modernist works, the material becomes the question, how we approach concept. But when you are asking more of the viewer, you recognize that the work is never actually finished because of the different reads of the work. And I think that's a big kind of point that she was making.
Exactly. Well, her most famous piece was called Divisor, where she had these canvases, and each person would actually take it and have to interact with it in some way. That was the piece.
What's it?
Just like a kind of like a Felix Gonzalez Torres piece, the stack of paper in each viewer that walks in the museum.
Yeah,
either,
it's stack.
and
Yeah,
it's more of the
because-
interaction with the viewer. Or the
Exactly.
audience
So
than
it
is
comes out
actually
different every time.
The material that it's
Mhm.
made out of, or the process of making that exact material. I
Mhm.
mean, it's more.
Yeah.
She looked pretty good for her age too, didn't she?
Oh, sweet.
She's a babe.
No, because I'm trying to think of artists before the time she was making interactive work